Hello everybody, this is Johan here, and today I'm going to be talking about Russia. Now, some of you who watch my normal channel will be wondering, why Russia? And the answer is actually very simple. A while ago I went on a trans-Mongolian trip that passed through Russia, and while on board I met some fantastic people. However, that is not fully the reason why I'm here. While I was learning about Russian history, I found something that seemed a little bit fishy to me. The two fishiest fishes being Ivan the Terrible and Peter the Great. What I want to know is, was Ivan the Terrible actually that terrible, and was Peter the Great actually that great? Well, let's start from the basics. Why was Ivan the Terrible considered terrible? He was not very good at one-on-one personal talk. And secondly, why was Peter the Great great? Well, he brought tobacco to Russia. He changed their fashion from robes to pants. No, but seriously, he actually did connect Russia to the seas, which actually, gotta give him credit, is probably why Russia is as good as it is today. Well, if we were to look at their childhoods, we'd see both of them had a bit of a rough start. Meaning that Ivan's dad, while on the throne, was killed and replaced several times, all the while Ivan being kept alive and entertained by many things. And by many things, I mean his viziers took cats and dogs and threw them at peasants from a height. Meaning that on a scary side note, the massively popular kitty cannon online is making Ivan the Terribles. And just a quick reminder that all of this, or most of it's, off of memory. So, whereas Ivan the Terrible was throwing, or watching cats being thrown off of the balcony, Peter the Great was kind of on a cruise ship. You heard me right, a royal cruise ship with his brother and sisters. When all of a sudden it was attacked by pirates. Everyone on board was pretty much killed with the exception of course, Peter. It was then that he realized that the Russians' fashion needed an update, and it was there that he found his uncanny passion for fruits. And that probably means what you don't think it means. That means that when he built St. Petersburg, he dedicated basically a few square kilometers to trees with personal heaters to keep them alive. Which, yes, he kept running all year long, burning all of their valuable resources. Although the same park also had some fountains, so that's pretty cool. Surprisingly enough, as soon as Ivan the Terrible was on the throne, major changes began to happen. First of all, government. Ivan the Terrible was indeed the person who put in place the monarchy that served Russia for until just about, 100 years ago? Second of all, he introduced self-government, something that was extremely generous and very, very ahead of his time to the rural regions of Russia. Not only this, but Ivan the Terrible captured right about a third of what Russia is today in 4 years. Not only this, but to the east he captured the Urals, and to the south he captured the Caspian Sea, making a natural buffer between Russia and the Mongol horde. That also means he didn't have to build an enormous stone wall to keep them out. Meanwhile, Peter was still gnawing on baguettes in France. Unfortunately for Ivan the Unlucky, somehow not very many people didn't like his action, eventually resulting in, yes, a police force dressed in black sent out to crush rebellion. Although, we have to give him credit, at that day and age, who would want to rebel, especially considering the peasants' higher say in government and lower taxes paid that he just instituted. Nearing his middle ages, Ivan the Terrible started getting a little protective over his son and what he wanted as a wife. Basically what this means is that one day Ivan the Terrible saw his son's wife walking around in the palace, basically public property, like a slut. So like any good dad would do, he started to whack her. This was, of course, when Ivan the Terrible's son came and saw him beating his wife, and started to beat him, and it was a big triangle of beating, until Ivan the Terrible noticed that his son was hitting him, and so he picked up a fire poker, thus resulting in this sad image. I mean, all he wanted to do was poke him away. Well, that's in essence Ivan the Terrible's story. Near his end, he tried to sustain himself using witchcraft despite his religion, but of course it didn't work. All in all, I'd conclude that Ivan the Terrible had great potential to be a good leader, except that when he was a child, his viziers entertained him with death. Moving back to Peter the Great, who returned from Europe a little while after leaving. Secondly, I don't know why he did this. It turned out alright in the end, but basically what it was St. Petersburg. In addition to creating a city with a really unoriginal name, he made a city that was basically just his cottage and a few loggers at the time. The capital of Russia. The capital of the most massive thing on Earth! Instead of say, oh, I don't know, Moscow, that enormous, massive, economic city of the world. Okay, I can understand that it might have been a good idea to have a capital city on the shore, but seriously, why would you make it the capital at that early stage? Just as a side note, you can still go to St. Petersburg today and see Peter's old cabin. Secondly, why do I hate Peter so much? Not Peter, my stepdad, Peter the Great. Why? He was a dick! And by this, I mean that despite the fact that he had about 3 wives, he would go sneaking out of the castle to lay next to some pretty maids. However, when he found his wife cheating on him, he tortured her. I mean, at least Ivan the Terrible put it out quickly. Basically, he had a son who was intelligent, and for some reason or another, Peter thought he was plotting against him. Therefore, the only logical thing to do was to exile him to a monastery or have him tortured to death. Instead, however, thank God, Peter's son ran away to Vienna to live a long and happy life. Peter the Great sent his army into Vienna to find his son who was going to take over the throne. Despite the fact that his son begged for his life and promised that he would never dream of trying to take over the throne, Peter the Peter decided that he would kill him nonetheless. I can honestly say that I have no idea why people didn't like Ivan and they loved Peter. I mean, what is this guy thinking? Returning to what Peter the Great actually did right, well, he had St. Petersburg, which made ships and therefore an army, and also he tried to attack Japan, which in turn resulted in several ships going down, along with thousands of people, who he drank all away in his special drinking house. That's right, he had a house for drinking vodka. Peter even made a group as about elite as the church, called the Most Drunken Synod. Formed in 1695, the Synod was a drunken parody of the church's ruling committee. Peter wrote up the group's charter himself, with the first commandment being that the members are to get drunk every day and might never go sober to bed. Fun! Finally, I would like to remind you that while Peter is a dick and Ivan is a psychopath, this is all my opinion, and if there's any historians out there, such as Grandma, hi Grandma, I'm not trying to argue with you.